Well, good morning, everybody. And as we just start off here today, I just want to tell you much of the weather story for the next 5 days is really dominated by the pattern that you see here. We continue to see deeper lows kind of curling up somewhere between the Hudson Bay and the Great Lakes. This is keeping the cooler air that's in place throughout much of the upper Midwest, the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and it's trying to get its way into New England. But we have some hotter conditions to the south of it, like heat advisories out for parts of North Carolina today. In South Carolina, the heat's still on in the southern plains and mid-south, and then the excessive heat in the west, largely due to a big ridge that's still sitting here over the west. But today's probably the peak of that ridge, and it's going to start to break down. We'll talk about what that's going to do in just a few seconds. Elsewhere, the tropics and the Atlantic, even though we're seeing these waves, these are the kind of easterly waves we'd like to see to produce tropical systems. There's too much dry and dusty air in here to do much. But right here, right into this area is where we just continue to see a slow moving frontal boundary that's just going to continue to sag to the south, and it's connecting up with the southwestern monsoon, and that's really been delivering a lot of heavy rainfall to Arizona and New Mexico. In fact, if you just look back over the last 72 hours along that stagnated front, of course we had the historic flooding in and around St. Louis, but also through southern Illinois, getting over here into Indiana, Kentucky, parts of West Virginia, and northern Tennessee, extremely heavy rainfall. This southwest monsoon has been quite impressive this year. In fact, it just lately delivered some rainfall in and around Lake Mead, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about the water issues going on in Lake Mead. This same southwestern monsoon initiated a lot of heavy rain in Colorado, including 11 reports of tornadoes just yesterday. But it's this front and its continual kind of sagging to the south that's finally going to bring some drought relief here into parts of the Mid-South, an area that's been just exceptionally hot and very, very dry. Now we look at the next 7 days, and there it is. That's the front just slowly moving. A lot of this rainfall coming here just in the next few days down into parts of southern Missouri, Arkansas, parts of Tennessee, Oklahoma. But notice on either side of that front in Texas and then much of the Midwest, upper Midwest, western Corn Belt misses out on a lot of this upcoming rainfall. And that's an area that I'm very concerned about. Because over the last 14 days, just take note of this region missing out on a lot of that rainfall. And as a result, as the pattern breaks and the cooler air moves out and the heat that's in the northwest spreads across the country as the big ridge here breaks down, this area is going to go over to hotter and drier. I do expect to see drought relief in through this area, but as I stated, not down into parts of Texas. I just don't see that the front's getting down there without any tropical development, either from the Gulf or from the Pacific, bringing moisture into Texas. We're just going to continue to see that problem getting worse and worse. On satellite today, just this morning, watching the sunrise here, there's our boundary we're keeping an eye on, but take a look at this. We just go back to yesterday. This is overnight last night. There we are. We can see the effect of that southwest monsoon, the big storms that popped here in parts of Colorado, the storms that produced hail in Nebraska along this second front that's coming right in through here. But do notice, and I include a lot today about the Western United States in the report, we do have some wildfire smoke from the Moose Fire and what's left of the Oak Fire here, but there was actually some scattered storms throughout California yesterday. But what caught my attention is right here. In fact, I want to go show this to you. Last night, take a look at this. There was kind of this mesoscale low that was sitting just off the California coast, and it just kind of sat there and spun around. I thought that was really impressive. Several little small mesovortices on the inside of it. And if you're curious what these stripes are here, these are ship tracks. So the exhaust from large container ships seeds clouds, and so you can see where they've gone by the way they modify the marine stratocumulus boundary layer. Really kind of neat there. Okay, big story here. This is the ridge today. There's the trough kind of orbiting around between the Hudson Bay and the Great Lakes. As we play through Wednesday into Thursday and Friday, what did we see? That the ridge flattens out, the trough moves east, and the pattern begins to shift back to what it's been throughout June and July, such that by Monday, now there's a trough on the west coast, relieving the heat. The ridge begins to reshape right here in the midsection of the country, and it spreads east. And so this goes back to what we saw, like I said, throughout much of the summer, other than the last 10 days or so. So the net effect of that is, remember these stalled out frontal boundaries? They're going to be here through Wednesday today, getting into Thursday and Friday. So by Friday afternoon, that front's just sagged to here as the lows continue to curl up in this area. But higher pressure builds into the Midwest on Saturday, and as it moves east, there it goes, on Sunday, the front, which continues just to sag right in through this area, goes with it. And at that point, things begin to open up in the west to bringing heat back into the middle part of the country. So this is by next Tuesday. When we think about what happens from day 5 through day 10, that gets us out to August 11th, the pattern goes back to what we discussed. Southwest monsoon, ridge-riding storms that come over the top of the ridge that's really going to be anchored somewhere in here. Active Canadian storm track. Those ridge-riding storms kind of cascade through the eastern Corn Belt toward the Appalachian Mountains. But there is a subtropical ridge sitting right in through here that's going to keep, I think, parts of the southeast a bit drier other than some daily storms. So that's that pattern we've kind of been having a discussion about redeveloping in early August. Now today, our all hazards weather map, we still have the flood watches that are out for the Ohio River Valley toward the Appalachian Mountains and with the southwest monsoon. But heat in the Carolinas, heat down here in the mid-south getting to Texas, and we still have the excessive heat in the Pacific Northwest. Let's take a look at what these temperatures are going to be like today. There's our highs. See the cooler air? That's all tucked around that trough north of that frontal boundary, but hot down here in Oklahoma, in Texas and Arkansas, spreading over to North and South Carolina. But this is probably the peak of the heat right now, today and tomorrow in the Northwest. I mean, 108 degrees Fahrenheit here, just extremely hot. That's Thursday, about the same story, but the pattern shifts. Ready? Here's Friday going into Saturday. Notice how we're starting to, I know it's odd to say, but cool off. We're no longer seeing the temperatures everywhere well above 105 degrees. And by Saturday going into Sunday and Monday, see how the heat's opening back up as the ridge moves into the midsection of the country. And that's the area that I'm getting really concerned about going here into the month of August. And here's the reason why. We've seen excellent model support in the movement of that pattern opening up the ridge in the midsection of the country. That's August 1st through the 5th. Through the 5th. And then as we play on out there, like the 6th to the 11th, it sticks around. So what we see here in the midsection of the United States is the likelihood of excessive heat in early August is high right here in the I-states, especially Iowa and Illinois, but it surrounds a larger area with above average temperatures. And I have to agree with the CPC saying that there's an increased risk of rapid drought onset in through this area and also here in parts of New England, but right here in the western Corn Belt, because that's the region, remember we talked about this at the beginning, that the rains did not come through in the last 14 days. So if we bring the heat back on and start to see, no precipitation really in the forecast other than isolated ridge-running storms, that's the area of kind of greatest risk as we go forward here. Okay, we'll just keep an eye on this throughout the week and just keep reporting back to you. So I'll talk to you again in the morning. Thanks.